said, all I wanna do is make $1 today. Smoking with the homies, trying to find me a way. Daddy never working, so I'm hustling.
New year, I like to start it off something in a new swag. Fuck you and your podcast. This the greatest in the world.
I'm alright with that.
Now let's get it. It's a new year, 2021. We had some things planned for y'all, but we gotta do an emergency pod because the world is fucking in flames. And you know, who's the better to talk to you when the world's in fucking flames than your three favorite guys? It's us. So, first things first. There was an insurrection at the nation's capital, U.S. Capitol building, not the one with the A, the one with the O. Get that right. Capitol is where the location, the vicinity, like the actual place, and the O is the actual building in which they stormed. I'm glad we got that taken care of. You guys good with your grammar. All right. So that happened on January 6, 2021.
English for you.
And when that happened, a lot of people, I don't think people were, I guess some people were surprised. Some people were, I don't know how people felt. If you've listened to this podcast enough, you should know that democracy, you should be happy that the democracy is somewhat still intact. You should be kind of happy because I think we called it like in 2017 that we might not even have a democracy. And I want to say that I was pretty close. So like, shout out to me.
You was like 2 steps away.
I was literally like just a few guns, like a few more people getting shot in the building to like kind of being right. But that's neither here nor there. We don't like to support insurrections or coups, but it's kind of what happened. So yeah, the failed coup happened, and now we have to come and talk about it. Like I said, some people were surprised. I guess a lot of other people were taken aback. I personally, I don't want to say I thought it was funny, but I thought it was interesting how much fun the people seem to be having in the building. People,
they was having it up.
People were smoking J's. People were. I mean, that's what people were doing. I mean, this is how it goes to podcast. It only seems right to start with the fact that people were smoking
in the rotunda, bro. In the rotunda, bro.
People
that's lit. That's what I'm saying. The rotunda, bro.
Niggas thought about smoking
the rotunda.
Like niggas is having it up. Like it seemed like a good time.
Not too many people would say I smoked weed in the U.S.
It's Capitol. Like, that's some shit.
Like Snoop Dogg's like one of the only people that can say he smoked weed in the White House. That's not a president.
So, you know, with all that happening, it kind of undermined the fact that an actual insurrection was actually taking place, and there were people with zip ties, there were people with explosives, there were people with actual armed weaponry that if they would have got somebody in particular, like somebody that they didn't like, it really could have got ugly. But all in all, shout out to the United States because they did their job. Like by like 3:00 that morning, they had certified the vote, and Joe Biden is officially going to be the next president of the United States, albeit nothing crazy happens in the forthcoming days.
No, for sure.
Hopefully this podcast gets to you, but it might catch you a little later. But can't make no promises. I'm just saying. I'm just being 100 with you.
If some wild shit happen, we might be back.
We might be back. Emergency. But with that being said, where are we at now? I want to do everything and give timestamps for real time because as the world changes, I don't want to be on record for saying something that doesn't. So it is officially 9-ish at Friday, January 15th. Mm-hmm. So at this point in the world, in the state of the United States, I'd say that I don't know what's going to happen next. And
that's a fair assessment.
And I believe and I hope in God willing and all the good things.
As far as what? What do you don't know that's happening next?
Well, if you the Capitol, like the fucking CNN, someone said CNN was pulling out fucking ESPN stats and info stats. They was talking about the Capitol hasn't been stormed since 1821. All I'm saying,
1812.
Whatever it was, 1821, 1812, the War of 1812. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So that's the last time the Capitol has been stormed in such a way.
Britain came in that jump.
What I say about the framework is that things are happening that have never, I don't want to say never, but haven't happened on such a grand scale in a modern democracy ever. Mm-hmm. So they've happened before we've sort of had laws and sort of gentlemen's rules of engagement. And I think what's most interesting is that the Constitution, if people actually read it and like actually look at a lot of these things aren't actual laws per se. They're things that should be done, and we do them because it's sort of tradition. It's really gentleman's agreement type of things. A lot of when you really look at like how Trump is maneuvering, a lot of what he's doing is just like, yeah, I'm doing it because who's going to stop me? And that's why that's why you don't see people bringing up the Constitution really much here, because
There's nothing unconstitutional
about trying to cause insurrection and stay in power. That's just a power play. So like, what I mean that like I don't know what's going to happen. Like the framework of the democracy, whether people want to like I said, there was an insurrection at the Capitol literally 9 days ago, and everybody's going about life like it's normal. Like people are talking about DC and like, oh, look at the way it's buried. Oh, it's crazy that we got troops. It's like Mook said it best. Someone just stormed your Capitol.
Yeah.
That's kind of what happens next.
Yeah, that's an act of war, my nigga.
I feel as though like me,
like the last time that happened, it was during a war.
I feel like me, Mook, and Brad are the only people who are like, it's an act of war.
Yeah, like
and
they committed treason.
That's what people, and that's what I'm like. That's what I don't think
And
people.
then they came in there with other flags of other old nations and shit like that. That's treason.
Other old nations, like Mook, why don't people understand that? Like
they
having a Confederate flag in the United States is a treasonous offense.
Yes.
First and foremost.
And
like
then you have it in the United States.
Then you have it in the United States Capitol. That is an act of war.
Yes.
Why is everyone acting like this is so simple?
Like
just because it's fucking dummies doing it.
Somebody on Twitter tweeted, this is like when Olympus had fallen. They said it jokingly, but I was like, no, that's serious.
This is
like, because these niggas dead ass came in, took over the
They
Capitol.
breached the Capitol.
Yeah,
like I'm not even big
they were
on
holding police officers hostage.
I'm not
they
even
were talking about they were taking their weapons and like killed them.
I'm
Like,
not even
you know
big
what
on
I'm saying?
symbolism and like all that nonsense and like buildings meaning things.
Yeah, for sure.
But when you break into the place where lawmakers, like all the lawmakers, and you attempt
laws are made, and then you went in there for a purpose.
and you attempt, that's what I'm saying, and you attempt to kidnap people, that is an act of war.
And then you have explosives, like Charles said earlier, like all of this, and then you got
and for everyone to take it
military weaponry, like come
and
on,
for everyone to take it so lightly, I'm like, okay, so here's my thing. They shut them down on like shit like Parler. Like, first of all, this is the only reason why
I didn't even know that was an app.
this is the only reason why I'm somewhat enthusiastic that everything will be okay. These motherfuckers are dumb enough that they're putting their information on free apps. They're not even buying like secure, like they're not even buying the Secure Pro versions and having some tech dudes run the shit. They're literally like, yo, sign up and get all my homeboys to fucking get on the app. They're fucking idiots. Like a lot of them are really not smart people. But
I keep saying there was the poor and dirty and ugly ones that came over this, huh? This is a slight version of whites that we got. Like this is not the advanced version of them.
all I'm saying is that when people do things of this nature and they have been, like, people think the 6 just happened. No, they've been plotting for weeks. They've been on message boards. Like, the NYPD has a whole message chat. I've read multiple articles of people infiltrating NYP message boards and chat rooms and sites and all these things and literally listening to and reading what these people say.
Nigga, DOJ was just hacked.
This isn't, people act like this is some, no, it's not a conspiracy. It is everyday people who hate the way the country looks and are trying to plot against it. And they had someone in power for 4 years who was pushing and helping that. And now he lost. And a lot of them are looking for reasons to do things. So storming of the Capitol was one thing to do. Boom. And they actually, they actually did it. So while everybody else is going back to business as usual, a lot of them are like, wow, what's next?
And that took like 3 hours just to get the amount of troops deployed that you needed.
Because the dude who was in charge was not calling them. Like, people have to take all these things into account when I say, like, what's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen. Because the most famous person right now in the country is Donald Trump. And he has a legion of people who just from all parts of the country drove, flew, whatever, to the fucking United States Capitol, D.C., then into the Capitol building and tried to stop an election. And if everybody wants to just act like that is run of the mill, that is fine. Me personally,
This ain't no regular hillbilly everyday shit to me.
me personally, this makes sense because this is what you do when you want to cause chaos to ferment any progress that goes further. So maybe all the things they just had a black and a Jewish senator get elected in a southern state. Shit in and this never happened before in any of these states.
Mind blown.
Very mind blowing. And no one gives a fuck and no one really cares and it's not gonna have as much impact. And like people be like, oh, that shouldn't matter. But this is how this country works. All that shit's matter.
For sure.
So while people are worried about this, what's gonna happen? Like people are talking about storming state capitol buildings next. Then what do? You have all the National Guards deployed in D.C., so when they storm all the state capitals,
Except
what do you do?
They holding you a bitch.
What? No. What do you do? Are all your governors in one accord to say that we're all 50 are going to stop them? Or do some of your governors in some places or some of your House members or whoever gonna make that final call, whatever your state constitution allows, are they gonna open the doors like in Oregon and let people in? Once again, you guys can play with it if you want. I am going to be very much on my Q's and P's trying to be like, what happens next?
For sure.
I'm not saying that anything bad is going to happen, but something bad has happened. So, if we're doing deductive reasoning, you niggas, when people were doing some shit, I seen black people when all this shit was going on and someone being like, man, people dying out there, man, that shit crazy. And then this shit happened, they like, well, you know, the media is playing. No one is like I don't care how many media people say they want you. Yes, you should be scared. If you don't, I don't care if they're trying to hype it or not. That is their job. You guys are idiots. Why? Read a book. Look, like, do you not see what's happening? Like, choose whatever TV platform you want to use. Fox, Democracy Now. Like, that's the thing. There are other places where you can find things that aren't CNN or Fox. But you niggas do not care about finding anything. You guys are looking for confirmation bias. I respect it. Not even mad at you. I do it all the time. But I'm also not bitching about the world around me. So I'm just telling y'all, I'm being on my P's and Q's. If y'all don't want, that's fine.
Keywords are flying.
I'm just trying to.
Nah, I feel you, Charles.
Just on my P's and Q's.
Sure.
That's all I have to say. Now, I wanted to transition because what I think is very funny is that the people who are doing this, most of these guys, are what we would call incels. Involuntary celibates. Men who are looking for romance or love, internet community men, Parlor, your Reddit, deep room chats, dark whatever, that the other things I talk about, like with those NYPD sites, who are looking for love and they can't find it.
You're learning me about these little chat rooms, Reddit and all that.
Yeah, they're like not Reddit in itself, but Reddit has the subreddits, which like if you really deep dive.
Anytime I hear about Reddit, it's nothing good. Like
people can find murders being done. Like that's what I'm saying. Like this is we live in a very filthy society, so I'm not ever surprised when things happen. So things aren't conspiracies to me. Like this idea that there's these no, it's the fact that we live in a society that are ran by a very few people, rich people, a lot of times connected to long historical families, banks, monies, things of that nature. This is power doesn't just end when someone dies.
Hell no.
Are you guys idiots?
It's transferred.
Like this is how things work. So I'm not no one is saying there aren't people at play who have things to do with, yes, for sure. But this idea that it's the boogeyman and the Illuminati is a social club.
If anything.
Like multiple social clubs, they just have a lot of power because the people in it are powerful. Maybe if your club got powerful people in it, you could be the Illuminati. You just ain't got that much power.
And it just happens to be all white men.
But here's the thing. All social clubs of white men are going to be social clubs of power because all of those are the people who have had power historically. That's going to get me to a little part that we're going to get to a little later. But let's get back to the incels. A lot of these guys who are doing this are incels. And that's the real issue. We gotta get
Like little Jacob and them that be in the home whacking off and shit.
we really gotta find a better way for, in particular, white men who suffer from this problem to find ways to help them. Now, I'm not part of the white community, so this is my calling to my white friends.
Little fetish guys.
I would hope for that you can help all your incel kind of buddies. Yeah, whatever Mook said, like you help them. Like
fetish guys. Yeah.
you gotta help them. We gotta
Cause them be the weird niggas.
we gotta make sexual like deviancy less stigmatized or less taboo. We gotta find a better way for.
You trying to welcome them into society?
We have to find a way because this is what happens. Like
That part of society is staying that society.
well, here's the thing. Like it's
It
only
is, but it's not.
it's only not society because of the way the mainstream has shunned it and treated it differently. So as long as we find a better way to, respect the community at hand, we could do something for them.
How far are we getting into the taboos, Charles, that we won't welcome in?
Well, I think here's the thing. How far have we got into things that have been quote unquote taboo in our mainstream already? So I don't know why we would. See, here's my thing. I don't understand
All right, like, was you about to say homosexuality?
Yes, and 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it was taboo to be gay openly. Why do people act like the world wasn't like that? I remind you, they really made a law called the Defense Against Marriage Act so that gay people could not get married in 1996. This is not something that happened in 86, 76, 60, 50. This happened in 1996. So this idea that like
Uncle Bill,
your good old Democratic president. So like this idea that we're somehow like
that nigga was Republican. That second
way
time.
more advanced as a society and not we're allowing things. So my point is that if you can see what can be caused when this community of people in particular does not have a way to be themselves, because people have died now. This is normally what it takes is for people to die. This is why the whole issue is with how people treat the LGBT community, because people die at a disproportionate rate. So because of that, you have to because that becomes a health concern.
For sure.
For a society when people are getting killed disproportionately for being.
Niggas almost like endangered species.
Exactly. So at that point, you have to take on a different sort of feel to it. That's the whole, oh man, this works perfectly. Now this gets to my greater point. This is why I need all the black women in particular and the LGBT community to relax on their slander to black men. For a long time, for the last year or so, I've been like, you know what? You guys are onto something for sure. You're making some good points. Can't even rebuttal. Don't even feel like it. But now we're going too far, and
don't even feel like it.
But now we're going too far, and now it has to stop because now we're conflating historical facts for personal feelings in the now, for personal gain, and it's getting very, very slippery slopey. Here's the truth of the matter. Black men, no matter how you feel about them, have never been able to participate in the patriarchy the same as white men.
Yeah.
This is a functional fact of society.
I feel like we talked about that on this podcast.
We've talked about it so much, but I have to make it black and white now. Address it firmly. Black men, as a whole, have never been able to formally, in particular in the Western world, participate in the patriarchy the same as white men. Due to that, all your issues with the patriarchy are directly, and I mean directly, rooted with white men.
For sure.
Your personal issues with black men are very valid. If a black man harms you, harasses you sexually, physically, emotionally, that is a valid concern and should not be dismissed by any stretch of the imagination. There is no place for that because as a community...
you're saying we learned that from Massa.
I'm not saying anything. No, I'm not saying anything. I'm saying that all your concerns, because people are people and people can hurt people, that has nothing to do with Massa.
And they say hurt people hurt people.
You being a bad person to somebody is of you being a bad person or somebody.
For sure.
That has nothing to do with anything. You can blame it on everything, and that's fine. That is on you. But that is on you.
That's what they be doing in court now, Charles.
Listen, you are
I'm just trying.
once you do something, you do something.
Black and white.
I'm making it black and white. Once you hurt somebody, you have hurt them.
For sure.
What other things that came prior to that? That's fine. That is beautiful. I'm sorry, but you have hurt somebody, and that is the truth of the matter. So I'm not about to cope out for black men hurting en masse. You have hurt that woman. That is on you. Mm-hmm. But back to my point, because they have not been able to participate fairly in the patriarchy. When I'm talking about participate, I'm talking about make laws. For almost 100 years, from 1877 to 1968, I believe, there were no black senators or lawmakers in the United States Senate or Congress. I believe so.
Something like that.
No, I believe senators, and I believe there may have been less than, 10 or so.
No, you're right, because South Carolina had one in the Senate.
Congress people. Yeah. Congress people and senator are two different things. Yeah. But like I said, no blacks for almost 100 years, man or woman. So any fundamental law that got passed, abortion law, Roe versus Wade, all these things, no black man even had any input on it. So your actual issue is with
white man controlling that pussy.
White man didn't even let white women have a say in this. Your issue is with white men. Like I said, your personal and your community issues, like quote unquote the church, religion, that is a personal, and that has nothing to do with white people. That has everything to do with the community. Mm-hmm. And as a community, if you feel as though that is a patriarchal setup and
you're getting deep now.
That is fine.
You just went smack at the black church.
And that is a reason for the black church to speak and to come to rectify with themselves.
Talk to your shit.
That is something that they will have to do with themselves as a community.
You know what I'm saying?
But the functions of the church are not the overall functions of society.
Not at all.
Part of society for sure, but not the overall functions. Mm-hmm. And I will go as far as that the church in itself, things that happen in the church, a lot of times were spurred on by the woman. The patriarchy is in most of the times in black spaces is figurehead truly and only. I hate to break it to a lot of niggas. The patriarchy is in figurehead truly and only in many of black spaces. Mm-hmm. Is that by design by white supremacy? Once again, these are things that I'm
gonna negotiate with your grandma.
Not doing in the other 30 minutes I have. So, nah. But what I will say is
you got a lot to get off your chest.
What I will say is that
I didn't know we was doing all this.
I'm just saying it's an emergency. It was an insurrection. We may not have too many more of these, so I have to get them out while we have.
Nigga, we about to like two
capital
jumps about to get ran through.
Niggas keep telling me federal
state jumps is
niggas keep telling me freedom of speech is da. So I might as well say my shit. Well, I have a riff on that too.
I need niggas to start reading the First Amendment.
But exactly. But back to my...
Because your freedom of speech is not that free when you directing it towards certain things. Your ass thing get
just
ran
not,
up
like,
on
it's
the
not.
Just relax.
You cannot deal fire in a crowded room. Like, you can't say certain things, like you said. Yeah. It's just like, I don't understand why. And we police people. There's a few words that anytime are said here, everyone goes, oh. Why? Because we understand certain language will get you in trouble.
For sure.
So why are people acting stupid now? Mm-hmm. Now, once again, I hate to beat a dead horse, but back to my point that black men do not have as much structural power as you guys want to give them, so you need to take all your efforts out on the white man. Mm. Let's talk about things such as like salary, education, economics. How many black men are in high-ranked positions to dictate the money in which a black woman can make? Now, once again, if you're in a workspace when a black man inherently goes out his way to make it harder for you, that is wrong, and that is a gripe that must be respected. But the idea that black men are somehow controlling the economics field, and so because we live in a patriarchal society, men might want to work with men more. That's kind of how a patriarchal society works. Why do people not understand that and take that out with who? The powers that be. The NBA. How many black owners they got? They got one. And you know
Jordan.
the one? He's the greatest fucking basketball player to ever fucking play.
For sure.
Do you not see how this works here, people?
Yeah.
do you not see how this works here, people?
And I think a lot of times people forget that Michael Jordan might even own the team.
You know, like,
He had a buyer from a black man too.
For sure.
and what happened to that black man? After all the things he's had, he owned Bob Johnson, the companies that are out. He's just another black guy right now with a lot of money. And now he has a lot less money than a lot of the other guys.
He a little B.
Might even not be a B anymore.
Maybe not.
So, and this is how I think people have to understand, not just like the black wealth is not something that is 100 years. Bro, these black men, who, whether you like it or not, for however I feel about capitalism, have done a good job for themselves creating a lot of this, amassing a lot of this wealth in a very short period of time.
Like 10 years.
Michael Jordan don't come from a family of fucking bankers who had $200 million to start.
2 country-ass parents from North Carolina.
Stop playing. Bob Johnson didn't have all these people. Oprah, bro. And look at how the numbers work. It's like 1 or 2 black women out here making hella money in this country. The lady who owns the fucking most popping like makeup shit in UK, a black woman. She's like worth $1 billion too. We have black people, both men and women, in these spaces. But of course, it's going to be more men. Why? The Western world is a patriarchal place.
But in the last 6 years, women are the fastest growing entrepreneurs and millionaires at that. Self-owned, self-made.
And this is my whole point. As long as this society we live in is a white supremacist society, any gains you make are going to be at the behest of other minority or lower people on the totem pole. So this idea that black women's gains are just not in any way or in conjunction with some of the things that happen with black men, in particular, mass incarceration. Black women get into, yes, no one's saying that, but look at the numbers. Since we want to do numbers now, what is the proportion of men to women? Why is that? Because it's a patriarchal society. I can understand all of these things. So why can't you take some of this into context when making some of your ridiculous and asinine statements?
Compartmentalizing doesn't work the same when you're trying to make a point.
But here's the... fuck it, you're right. Yeah, I guess that's the point. Here's the point. You're right. So here's my thing. With that being said, with that being sort of the baseline for how we're carrying things, we need more facts. Like...
People don't like when you throw facts into arguments, though.
Like, it has to be what it is at this point. Like, things that said are about people. Like, people talk about all this money, and it just baffles me when I know the IRS has on their page that a family of 4 living in poverty is $30,000. Like, that is what the United States government page says.
Yes.
It might be like 36 now, but it's been 30,000 for a long time. And the
Last time I looked, it was like 38, but it probably went down due to COVID.
And the median income in a lot of places around the country hovers between like $30,000 and $40,000. Who's lying here? Who is lying here?
Don't worry, we'll wait.
I'm just saying.
No, because I think that
like I look at the state of Maryland in particular, and I think it's like 56,000 or like 57,000. I'm like, wow, Maryland is on the high end of the country. Like you look at Maryland, like, like top 5.
Think of the average income for a government worker, though.
You know, it's like top 5 and all this da. But then like that's the thing about average and median. But then when you kind of start looking at the median numbers across, and it's like, wow, you got places like West Worcester and parts of, you know, Prince Anne and all these places.
State of Maryland.
You know, but like, not just Prince Anne, but like other places, Hager, so wherever those places are, Frederick, where like it's like 180 and 90.
Oh yeah.
And then you go and then you look where,
Potomac and shit.
you know, and then you go look where it's low, Baltimore, Prince George's,
Baltimore City.
you know, and then not the county.
Not
And
the
then
county.
you realize that, even in
It's really crazy because even Anne Arundel County, Baltimore County, and then you just hit Baltimore City, and then you just like, and you see it.
but you can look at the numbers
Yeah,
too,
you
and
look
it's,
at the numbers, and it's just
and
like,
it's
this
very
is
like
fucking ridiculous.
But my thing is that like when that happens, then you look at how it is, and then you look at like the population and the demographics, and they're black people most of the time, and they're brown people most of the time. And when you see this, and then you see the way a lot of these people get around on places and talk about economics and society as a whole, it baffles me. Like dudes are like shunning payments from the government while getting them. Like I know most of you are getting stimulus checks while shaming getting stimulus checks.
Yes.
It makes no fucking sense to me.
Charles, it's ridiculous.
It's
Hypocrisy
it's
in the
people.
last few years.
It's people literally.
It is the second virus.
It's literally people saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna use that money and save it." Bitch, that's money you didn't have to save before.
For sure. That added to your savings. That's $600 that you did not have to take out of your pocket personally.
Or work for, or
work
labor.
for.
Like, why do people act as if somehow, like, them complaining about society is the ultimate end-all, be-all?
Can't go.
You have the right. No one is telling people you don't have the right to say that you don't like society.
Got a cat?
Yeah, you want to get in here? Listen, you can't talk about society. Your opinion,
Sam, your involvement in society isn't even the same.
you know what I'm saying? You have the right to
bad.
society. You have the right to have opinions on why it is the way it is and how it shouldn't be and why. But the idea to sit up here and have some fucking gall, like
And audacity.
audacity.
As much as they love to say that word.
Wow, like I was on this fucking Clubhouse and I'm arguing with niggas who was telling me like,
Charles, you arguing with niggas on Clubhouse?
I don't even know who was arguing, but niggas is telling me like, yeah, America's a shithole. And I'm like, America's the world's shithole. And I'm like, do you know how much like $1 goes for in other countries?
For sure.
And niggas is like, well, yeah, we're not even talking. But I'm like,
Nigga, take $6 as your booty.
it infuriates me.
You're getting robbed.
It infuriates me
What the fuck are you talking about?
when people literally say stuff like, "Oh yeah, you know, it's no one is." I'm not trying to undermine.
Take $1 to Yemen today, right now.
I'm not trying to. I'm not, bro.
Do you know what the fuck is going on in
bro,
Yemen right
I'm not
now?
trying to undermine the realities of living in the United States of America.
Nah, and it's caused by the United States of America. That's why I said Yemen.
You know what I'm saying?
Nah, fuck that. What's your stance on Yemen, nigga? I'm G-checking niggas on
You have to
Earth.
relax. But my point is that like
wrong with it?
I'm not here to undermine the struggles of any person in the United States of America, in particular any black person. I will never do that. That would be disrespectful to the many struggles that have taken place on this soil before and me that I benefit from.
Flint still don't got water, and the nigga that changed the plans just got tried. Like, he just went to court for it.
I just saw that recently. It was 2 guys.
You know what I'm saying?
But my thing about it is that what happens in the past, while very true to the day, doesn't negate what is going on other places. And the reality of the fact that for the last 100 of years, the United States and its currency and its dollar has effectively ran the world. The UN is ran by the United States of America.
For sure.
Apartheid lasted for an extra 40 years because the United States had no problem with it.
And the Great Britain.
That is more so United States.
They didn't step in and none of that shit.
But if the United States said it was done, Great Britain after about 1958 had no standing in the world. So at any point, if the United States said,
does Great Britain still owe us money?
who everyone owes the United States money.
The United States owe a lot of people money too. So.
But that's the whole point. If you really like, here's the thing about this that the United States owes. How much money does all these other people owe the United States that if they ever wanted to be and call taxes, fucking the world might fucking collapse. Like this is what people have to understand about how this fucking thing is going to be played. I hate that I know some of you guys are like, it's not fair, but the world has been global for a lot longer than you want to think. Just because you can tweet niggas across the pond now does not mean niggas ain't been vacationing in the fucking UK since like 1820.
For sure.
Like, stop it. So, like, this idea that the world just became this global is not true. Oh, yes. So, shout out to ADOS. I like the energy. I think it's a little flawed with some of the policy, but I like the energy.
Who?
American descendants of slaves. I believe that's. Please, if I'm wrong, do not bite me.
They
But
trying to do that?
yeah, all right. So I was talking to a cuz, and boom, we talking, he like, reparations. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, why not? It sounds like doesn't sound like a bad idea. Like, black Americans.
I feel like they wrote that down somewhere. They owed us something.
Black Americans should be given some sort of compensation for years of slavery, the labor in which they were forfeited from. I don't have no problem with that. So we get into talking, and he's like, well, you know what happens? He's like, black immigrants, African immigrants in particular, they come to this country and then they co-opt the struggle when it's necessary, but then they run to the other necessary, the struggle when it's not. And I was like, no, I definitely see this. I was like, there's definitely some of that. Like, black immigrants come here and sometimes they stand off from black issues. They don't engage. I don't think that's not a fair enough. He's like, yeah. And then after they co-opt it, they just take, and then it's nothing in back, and then like So I'm like, all right, I'm like, but I'm like, well, you gotta understand. I'm like, the world. This is where I went to. The world is more global. I'm like, imperialism and things of that nature have affected the Western world and have all been a byproduct of affecting Africa. So, due to that effect, it's an ultimate effect on those people that your country has imparted on these people. Sure. He's like, no, that's true. He's like, the exploitation. He's like, anybody who's been any black person who's been exploited around the world in the diaspora, they gonna get help, but they gonna get help next. And I was like,
next?
He's like, that's part 2. I was like, okay. So I was like, he started saying, well, he's like, he was like, what we gonna do is like, we gonna get like we gonna get a sovereign country within the United States, and within that, we'll get reparations. It might be money. It might be a certain something on the dollar. He's like, we work things out. Like he said, we did something in Texas in particular because he was like, Emancipation Day, from that day to Juneteenth, we were laboring. And he was like, there's money that we are owed from that. And I was like, he was like, even in our holidays, we're owed things. And I'm like, no, I respect that. So when he said the sovereign country, my first thing was, so how do you make up for any exploitation that has happened to any other Africans due to the labor that was occurred through black labor? Nah, see that's what y'all do right there. Y'all try to co-opt the black struggle and make it y'all. I was like, oh, wow. And then someone came in and shut the room down. So we didn't even get to finish. But I was like, that was interesting.
Charles, you in here shutting down chat rooms?
It was interesting because anytime you pushed him to look at the fact that the exploitation of black labor in this country is directly connected to black exploitation anywhere else, he wasn't trying to hear it.
That happens a lot with like American blacks.
When you even talk about the idea of slavery, like the actual like let's go like let me be a dickhead and go let me go truly numbers from 16 whatever you want to call the beginning of it, 09 to 1776. The United States is a colony of Great Britain.
Yeah.
So all your slavery inquiries are legitimately
taking over. You should take them up with Great Britain.
You should take them up with Great Britain.
But I tell niggas all the time, the Portuguese and the Spanish started the slave trade.
Fuck that. But your actual slavery since you want to play this,
UK is your issue.
UK from 1609 to 1776, your issue is strictly with the UK. And if you want to pass the buck, then the United States government could say, hey, We were a colony that, because that's exactly what they're going to do. So from 1776 to 1865, you have 100 and you have 80 years. You have 80. Well, I guess when does the emancipation? Do you do the emancipation on the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments? Whichever one you decide is your cutoff date is your 80 years of labor in which the United States government in which you can pick from. Now let's go more asshole. Who succeeded?
Their dumb ass probably stopped at the 14th.
Who succeeded from the United States in 1860?
Oh yeah,
It was 13 Confederate states, right?
Your man's in there.
Where were most of the slaveholding people in the United States?
In the South.
In those slaveholding Confederate states. What if the United States government says that was a treasonous government and occupation in which succeeded from us, and due to that fact, your reparations is with a dead government that is no longer in power?
They can twist it a lot of ways, Charles.
Just action. Just want to know. Just want to know what happens. Just want to know if that's what the United States playbook is.
Yeah.
They be right.
I wouldn't say they'll be right.
I would say they would owe you from 1776 to 1860 for sure, until those states did their actual succession. They wrote their succession notes. Like you can read the Confederacy document. The Confederacy amendments are up to date. Number 3, keep slavery extended to the states and into the Caribbean and islands further.
Niggas just trying to go back and get the islands.
They
were trying to go back.
Just telling you what Robert E. Lee
I'm already shocked with
and his sovereign nation was trying to do. People talk about like black people around the world have only taken from people. Frederick Douglass literally went to England and persuaded the common people to get on behalf and then persuade the monarch and parliament to not recognize the Confederacy as an established government. Limiting trade. People talk about what did read a fucking history book. W.B. Du Bois talks about the general strike and how black enslaved people knew better than to fight at the beginning part of the war, and that their best asset was their labor. The first 3 years of the war, the Confederacy was whooping. When I mean whooping the Union, due to the fact that the Union did not have enough men.
Out of the United States.
The Union did not have enough men. And you know why the Confederacy didn't even need to have black people fight and their dumbasses because they waited too long? Because the Confederacy was just outmanning the Union. And they still had people working. And
if you watch the movie Glory, that's like literally the beginning of what Charles is talking about.
And at some point between 1861 and 1862, a black general strike occurred. And black labor decided that they would no longer work the plantations. And as they did not, the Confederacy crumbled. Like, read a fucking book sometimes and just stop talking about your feelings. Listen, black people deserve reparations. This is not anything to be debated. The exploitation of black people around the world,
the insurrection,
is due in part.
That building was built by slaves.
Is due in part not just to black people here, but to white supremacy that affects the whole world. Do you think the United States of America will be able to do some of these things without having Britain, France, Germany, and other places turn a blind eye? People talk about Nazi Germany so fucking much and not remember that where did they learn it from? FDR literally at World War II had to send notes to federal judges in Alabama to stop convict leasing because he thought the Nazis would use it to turn black people against the United States of America. Write a fucking book. I wish you guys the best.
And they still semi did it.
And I wish you, after they won, defeated Nazi Germany and was like, yeah, we'll still hang black people for another 10 years in this country.
Still did it.
Listen, read a fucking book sometimes, you guys, okay? This is what I think. Niggas be getting all up in arms about shit that if I'm like, yo, if you just read a book, you would probably have more, like you niggas be having all these smoke for immigrants and all this shit when you can have all this smoke for white people. Why not take you're not your grandparents no more, right? I see all the shirts and you're not your ancestors. Well,
Hey, I gotta stop that.
Well,
Y'all some whole
read a book.
Whole bitches.
Well, read a book.
Like, y'all
Well, read a
ancestors
book
was
and go
whole
smack.
thugs, man.
If you actually read a book,
Our ancestors was thugs.
listen. If you read a book, you would know the facts.
I gotta relax.
And you would go smack some white people, right? Because they were the ones who. What black people? My favorite thing. Black people can't be racist because of
He got
power.
his foot cut off in roots. No?
Black people can't be racist because racism has to do with power. Sure, I'll give you that argument. Then black people in certain places of the world go tell other black people that they're being racist to them. How? If you just said that racism is a form of power and none of you motherfuckers got power, who can be racist to each other? You can hurt each other's feelings, and that's the whole thing. Black people be hurting each other's feelings, and they think that's some sort of like, okay, your feelings got hurt. These Africans hurt you, that's cool. These Americans hurt you. These Caribbean people said yes. These American people said yes. Yes. They all said it, yes. It's all true. They said everything you said, yes. It's all true. I want everybody to know.
Oh, y'all was slaves.
They all called you a kata. They all called you bedwenches. They all called you all the names. Yes.
What that mean, Charles?
Well, apparently, that's what I see. I've been in these rooms. Bedwench is what they call
Charles,
it.
you gotta stay out of these rooms.
Bedwenches is what they call the African people, in particular the women, because like concubines. Yeah. Because apparently a kata, a kata slur for black American, they heard that and that, so now they got their shit, bedwench. That's what I'm saying. All of it's true. The African booty scratcher.
So y'all out here making more slurs.
African booty
Y'all want
scratcher.
us to stop saying nigga to each other.
Jungle nigga.
But y'all creating more slurs.
All the slurs.
Sand nigga.
Jungle
I got
nigga.
that on the train the other day.
Sand
son.
nigga, jungle nigga.
I was so thrown off.
What do you mean, jungle nigga and sand
Like,
nigga,
I-
African
Slim,
Arab?
She called me a sand nigga. This random white lady.
Listen,
Like she got on the train and
You went like that?
son, I was thrown off. Cause like I was like, what the fuck?
he's like, I didn't know this Koofy came with all that.
Slim, Shorty got like, nah, I did, but Shorty got on cause like the flight to Dallas, Slim got off the jump. But nah, Slim got on the train,
Oh man, that's
looked
sad.
at me, I looked at her, she was like, oh no, sand nigga. Turned around and got off the train.
Oh no.
And then I turned around, got off the train.
I feel it.
And then I just started laughing.
I feel you out
I
laughing
just
shit
started
like that.
dying laughing. I was like, that is hilarious.
But my greater
Yeah, baby, I'm here, baby.
my greater point is that
Is that Pocket 94?
my greater point is that it's all true. Everything they said about every group is true. I promise you. I've heard it all from all of y'all. Y'all all said it about each other. Y'all called them African people poor. You said they live in huts and they get chased by lions. Yes, they said it about you. I promise you. I'm sorry they called you a kata. They say you ain't got no culture and heritage. I'm sorry they said it.
Man, throw Americans in the village, nigga. You don't.
It is what it is, bro.
Lions, nigga.
They said it. I'm
That is an
sorry.
accomplishment.
They said it about you, and now it is what it is. Your feelings got hurt, but none of y'all have no power. So all your bickering and bitching doesn't move me in any sense. So unless you guys are about to formally in your own places do what you need to do, I think y'all should find some better things to do than come up with new slurs and reinterpret history for stupid facts that you guys don't even really read that can be debunked very quickly and
Niggas out
swiftly.
here blackwashing history.
Oh, for sure. But here's my issue. Here's my thing. I'm not really upset with that. As long as you do not hurt other black people in your doing so.
Yeah.
If you're gonna blackwash history to hurt white people, hey, it is what it is. But once you're gonna start doing it
Slavery started with America.
like once you start doing that to affect other people, other black people
Actually seen somebody say that.
who definitely get affected by your country's, because here's my thing, these people live by loving America. While America goes bomb places like Yemen, goes fucking runs and gives money to aid political and fucking fascist regimes all across the fucking African continent, like in Uganda. This is things that the United States government is responsible for. Your tax dollars, when niggas thought they wasn't getting the stimulus and niggas posted all the money they was giving all these other countries, oh, why they giving $500 million a dollar? I seen everybody say all them countries, but only a few people had the balls to talk about Israel. Why? Because that's the thing. People don't really care about fixing any of these problems. Niggas don't care
It's
about the
like
fact that the United
we
States
not-
gives them money
We
every
not
day.
getting no money from
Every-
our taxes.
every day.
But they getting all the
Every
money
day,
from our
the
taxes.
United States gives aid to this country, which is Israel. They do that. They give them money to stay in a functioning, floating place.
Occupying country.
This
which
is what they
called
do.
Israel.
I said the country they call Israel. That's what they gave money to that state.
That occupying force.
They give money to that state. So my thing is that
That Zionist regime.
if you believe in American affairs, why don't you employ your governors, your state senators, your politicians
It's a
to stop
terrorist
giving
organization.
aid? You don't have to give aid to that country. Is that American?
No. They sell their own technology. They
No,
got their
my
own
thing is
all
that
that shit.
they're a country.
They're
They're
big
functioning.
boys.
They're a functioning country.
They're 70 years old. They can stand
They're
on
a
their
big
own.
country.
For sure.
Why don't you employ your state senators so that black people in the country can get more money?
Mm-hmm.
Ask to cut down the foreign aid.
On Israel, though. Because you
No,
cutting
you
off.
can ask to cut it down. Here's my thing.
They cutting off foreign aid to places that actually need foreign aid.
But and here's my point. Why don't you ask to get it cut down?
And increasing aid to Israel.
But it's just like defund the police. It's the same thing.
You got me there, buddy.
It's the same concept.
Got me there.
Certain places in the world are deemed more important than others. So giving money to them is seen as a fundamental good to the world. Because why? America controls the world. So once again, all your gripes, I think I should call this all your gripes. All your gripes should be taken up with white men who control America. Those are, and not all white men, because not all white men are players in the power structure. Do all white men benefit? That is yes.
Yeah, for sure.
So white privilege is a thing. But not all white men are your enemies. If there are white, like, shout out to Dick Gregory. A lot of y'all fuck with Dick Gregory, right?
I actually met him in person.
Shout out to that. Rest in peace, his good soul.
Yeah, I met him at the board versus Brown versus Board of Education. They had like an anniversary jump at the Kennedy Center in DC, and like I was in history class, got to go. Me and some other cuz, and we was out that jump, and we was just walking around, meeting people randomly, and then Dick Gregory was in the bathroom. Then I came outside. I was like, I seen him before, and my teacher was like, that's Dick Gregory. And then we actually walked up and shook hands with him. And he presented that night. He presented an award to Bill Cosby.
What a world. But that's my thing. Dick Gregory said something, what I seen recently, about how John Brown is the greatest living American because John Brown wasn't called from any place by any god, but came and risked his white life and started the Civil War, ultimately freeing Dick Gregory. You can watch the clip. It's an interesting clip. How he
No, I've read about John Brown recently.
Yeah.
There's a show about him called The Good
on,
Little Bird.
on Showtime. We were talking about it, but it was like randomly shout out to Speech Club. We were talking about it, but it's more of comedy. But like the actual John Brown story is very like he lost 5 kids to slave insurrections. Trying to end slavery, like a white man. So like Dick Gregory makes some really compelling points as to why he's the greatest thing America has produced, the greatest, person America has produced. But all that to say, look, man, your issues are with people who are not the people who you are screaming the loudest at. I'm not saying you shouldn't be screaming at them, but your issues are not with the people you're screaming the loudest at. Listen to me one more time, the loudest. And they say you can't scream at them, but I said the loudest. And if you don't think that's a problem, if you don't think that's a product of white supremacy,
I'm speechless, child.
look, man, I'm just saying, I'm not really trying to call anyone out or whatever. I'm just saying, put things in historical context. If you are to say that the patriarchy, black men are, benefiting and participating in it, then let us grasp it in its full totality. Let's not pick and choose at what points the patriarchy is a benefit to black men. And I'm not even talking about stupid shit like paying for dates and random shit like who gets to split bills in a home. No, I'm talking about fundamental laws that are set that affect your reproduction rights. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that power structure, not the power of, because there's plenty households in black places where the woman pays and it's fine. and there's no issue. So that is a personal thing to your power structure and your home dynamic. Can't speak for the black community as a whole. I don't have the numbers in front of me to tell me boom, boom, boom.
No, facts.
Like, and then I see some of the stats and the reports y'all use is like, y'all can't even read the own shit y'all putting out. Like, you're telling me shit that I'm not even asking. You're telling me that black women are the highest earning single mothers. Okay, yeah.
I'm talking
It's more black women who are single mothers in particular than the other counterparts.
Mm-hmm.
So their number would be higher. The same way it's more like, bro, anybody who does any basic research or took any basic research course could do some of this stuff and be like, all right. And when debunked, be like, all right, well, how does to be honest, I don't even like those weird ass polls in which we survey a few selection of people and then we use that.
Because niggas don't ever read the key on graphs.
And then we ask why all these people, and then we ask why all these people voted for Trump after the poll said they wouldn't, because the polls are
5,000 people
exactly.
participated. I'm like, motherfucker,
in the representation of da da da. Like,
motherfucker, this ain't nobody.
this ain't nobody. Like, these be little fucking 100, 300 people surveys, data collection,
Like,
and people are like,
these are the first black people you saw on the street that day to get off. Whoever collected this data, this is the first 300 people they saw that day. Black people, asked them questions,
and then
got them up out of there.
And now this is the representation of all black, and this is the representation of all black people. Like, look at like there are literally institutions. I think Chicago. I think multiple. I think it's the University of Chicago. I think it's the University of Michigan, who specialize in the studies of African Americans or Black American livelihood. Status. They go in depth. They have whole departments of research folks who go in and do basically Du Bois field work type of research of learning black life. These are the places where you can find information if you want, but you guys would rather find somebody named Dr. Umar 2225 on whatever and listen to his post where he puts on his blog post that black men don't love black women hate black men, and then y'all be like, yeah, look at this, look at that. I'm tired, bro. Go read a book. I got things to do 2021. This is the emergency pod. Not more of this will be happening. More fun, more nonsense and tomfoolery. The world needs to end. So if it's going to,
Whoa, what? The world needs to end?
yeah. Have you not seen what the fuck is going on out here?
Needs to relax.
I don't think it needs to end.
All right, the world needs to.
We got shit to do.
The world needs to calm
I'm waiting
down.
on some emails to get back.
The world needs to calm down a bit
Thank you.
and relax. And until then,
The world needs to find this land. It's like, no.
yeah. Well, whatever.
I was about to go into a Malcolm X quote, so I chilled out.
People love Malcolm X now. I'm what I'm saying. People love Malcolm X now.
Let's do it.
Question for y'all, but I guess I think the episode.
Nah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. Get your
Let's
last
do it.
question in, because I'm about.
We can end the episode with this.
How do you guys feel about Lloyd Harvey on January 15th?
Listen,
2021?
if niggas, I've never seen people so concerned about someone who I've literally heard speak like 100 words. Like,
I've never heard her speak.
I just don't
And I
understand.
love it.
I seen her do a like a Spotify ad hit. I just don't understand why y'all care so much. She's a cute girl who comes from affluence, who's dating people in her tax bracket. You should try to do the same.
No, shorty
Like,
is
what? Like niggas, I'm like niggas like keeping score of who she dating. Like that's your best friend. Go bestie. Go. Like you gotta relax.
I don't know why anyone cares.
I really don't. Shout out to Meek Mill because I guess he started all this hoopla.
He did.
I want to know
I
on my wish
I
list.
thought it was Memphis Depay.
Nah, he rapped there in the song like I got Lloyd Harvey in
My wish list.
Oh, okay. That's when niggas stopped paying attention. I knew
I
she
would-
was dating Memphis and Lewis Hamilton.
And that's what I'm saying. You know, we know. Here's my thing. Like Ari is.
I mean, I also watched those sports, so
Well, here's my thing. Like Ari is a thing. Like people care about.
talking about Moneybag Yo.
Yes. People seem to care about rappers'
It's old
girlfriends.
news, babe.
Well, that's my whole point. Like people keep tabs on that type of stuff. So like that's weird to me, but that's part of the culture now. So she's the new girl. Like people were doing this with Karrueche. Like I'm confused. Like why we're acting like this is anything new. Like she's the girl we're doing this with now.
I'm happy that ended.
It's lit. Shout out to her. I hope she makes some more bag off of this. And yeah, shout out to Lori.
Facts. Okay, here's the quote.
Nah, dead ass. You know what I'm saying? I thought we about to end the
Hey,
joke.
we gotta
so
end on the
like,
quote.
yeah.
We're not ending on no Lori Harvey.
Hell
Fuck
nah,
that.
Nah, that's crazy. So yeah, America needs to understand Islam because this is the one religion that erases from its society the race problem. Throughout my travels in Muslim world, I've met, talked to, and even eaten with people who in America would have been considered white, but with the white attitude was removed from their minds by the religion of Islam. I have never before seen sincere and true brotherhood practiced by all colors together, irrespective of their color. Malcolm X, the letter from Mecca.
Listen, white people, just get that white thinking out your head and you be good people.
Some of the practices from some of the shit that's written in the Constitution is just like Islamically